So I have a slide that is full of text, and I found this online. This is actually one of the slides from Netflix culture slides or presentation. I think I can add some icons and then beautify the slide so that it's more appealing. So I'm going to follow the points that I have listed in my blog, thewomaninsuit.com. The first thing that I'm going to do is to recreate the simple layout. So let's go. So if I look at this slide, to be honest, it has already somewhat followed the layout. You click insert and then new slide, and you use this slide with title only. So this is basically the title placeholder. So you just copy that slide title there. So that's going to ensure that the title uses the title placeholder. So here we've already got the title, so now it's time to add the icons. Now the issue is you actually have a lot of possibilities in terms of inserting icons. Like for example, you can pretty much visualize and iconize the strategy matrix and so on and so forth. The same with this bullet points under control or avoid. But the thing is, if you do that, I think your slide will be very crowded. It will be very cluttered. So then I think the icons defeat the whole purpose of beautifying the slide itself. And I'm going to add icons only for these 2 points, which is context or embrace and control avoid. So now with regards to adding an icon, you want to think about like what kind of visual representation actually best represent context or embrace in this case. You want to look for an icon that has a smiley face or even a thumbs up for embrace. Now let's add the icon. So what I said in my blog is that when you are inserting icons, you have the option to use the icons menu or command provided by PowerPoint. This is my favorite way of inserting an icon because afterwards you can actually recolor it with ease. Use this hardy-eyed kind of smiley faces. And let's have a look at the set face. Oh, okay, this is a set face for the avoid point. And then let me just scroll down to make sure if there are other icons that I can use. Let's see. Okay, this is good. So we've got a thumbs up. So with regards to thumbs down, you usually use the same icon. You just basically flip it vertically and then you have a thumbs down. Let me just insert all of those. And then I will copy this thumbs up and then make it a thumbs down by rotating it and then flipping it vertically. Okay. Now I'm just going to line it up. I can make this bigger, and then the beauty of using the PPT icon or provided by PowerPoint is that when you resize it, you still actually have a very high quality icon, so it's not pixelated or anything. So I can combine these 2 icons actually instead of choosing just one. So I'm making this bigger and then making this one actually much smaller, and then you just put it kind of like side to side. You can also group it, so now it becomes like one icon. Now after you have already done this thing, you want to check out like the size of that emoji so that you can also have the exact same size for the other icons. So 4.23, I'm just going to change this as well. And then let's have a look at the thumbs up, 1.61. Okay, we're going to do the same. So there's this thing like the ruler like lines, so you want to use that to make sure that everything is neatly aligned. So you want to have the same distance between one and the other. And then lastly, let's group it as well. For now, what I have here is the standard size. So you want to check your slide size here. So currently it's the standard, but to be honest, nowadays people rarely use the standard size. When you actually project your presentation, most of the TVs or monitors right now is widescreen, so that's why I don't actually have any reason to stick with standard size. I'm going to convert it to a widescreen, so then it means that you can actually have a modern looking slide, and then you have more room to breathe. Okay, copy and paste the rest of the content so that I can successfully replicate the layout here. Okay, let me just align this to center, make sure that it's in the center. Click that one, align, and then align center. So now it's in the center of the slide itself. Then for the icons, because I want to, okay, I'm just going to put it here. The same with this one, you want to make sure that you also roughly have the same. So see, this ruler thingy actually helps you a lot in aligning your elements. So, okay, a bit further down, and okay, roughly, I think now we have a neatly aligned in the center, kind of like icons and text. Now let me just copy and paste the others. And putting this kind of like in the center relative to the icon, and then the same with this one. So you always have the option to recolor the icons only. Like for example, you want to use your presentation theme color, and often that your presentation theme color uses perhaps your logo color. Let me just make it small. So I just want to replicate this red, because basically if you see, now let me recolor the icon. This red is not the same red as the Netflix red. So in order for you to get the exact same color, you can use the eyedropper tool and then just hover over and click the red that you want to replicate. If I just recolor the icon as it is, it's actually still a bit dull. Basically, you want to have a bit of a block color in a slide that is quite plain like this one. So let me use the round shape. Let me add it. So you want to make sure that, okay, this is, so it's not exactly a circle. And now to the fill of the shape, I'm going to make it Netflix red. And then make sure there's no outline, so you do not have two different colors. So you can always go with this kind of positioning, but what I like to do is, let me just ungroup this. If I make this bigger, so don't be afraid to play around with the positioning and the sizing of the icon. You can always make it too big and then just show like a part, most of the part of the icon. So like this one, and then I will even also flip this, flip horizontal, and then I'll also make it a bit bigger so that only part of it is shown. So now your logo looks much more kind of a sophisticated to a certain extent. Okay, see? Let me just group this. And then I have a new icon. Then I'm going to do the same with the other one. So I will just copy the round shape that I created, paste it. But the thing is, I think to signify that it's not something that is important, which is basically what you want to avoid, I will actually recolor this one, not with red, but with a bit of a light gray. Okay, then I just want to make sure that I have the same size for this one, 3.68. Okay, now recolor. I will send this to the back, coloring it with white. Okay. So you want to be able to replicate kind of like the same positioning with the other logo that you have. I will now just switch this perhaps to the right, so I have an opposite kind of okay, that looks good. So I go with gut feeling on that one. I don't think there is a sure way to make sure that you have the exact kind of positioning. So I'm going with kind of like relying on my eye. Okay, now I want to make sure I have the same 1.776. Oh shit. So let me just position this here and this here. So you want to make sure that both of the icons are properly aligned with each other. Okay. But for the purpose of beautifying this slide, I will actually choose different fonts for the heading as well as for the content. But you always, if you are kind of new to designing PowerPoint, or you wouldn't consider yourself really good at designing PowerPoint slides, then I would suggest that you stick with one font and then just play around with the size of that font as well as whether you want to make it bold or italic or not. And then I will actually make all of this uppercase, context not control. Then for this one I will use Lotto as well, and then make it bigger, like perhaps 18, and then I will italicize it. Make sure it's in the middle, in the center of the slide. Let me just move this one kind of like up. Okay. And next, let me also play around with this, converting all of them to Lotto. I will actually use Lotto Light, and then make it a bit bigger. Okay. So this actually looks a bit dull at some point. And what I will do is actually to separate this one, cut it, and then paste it again. I will make this not in the same line, but two separate lines, and then make sure that it's center aligned. Since this is like the title of the bullet points itself, or the title of the icons, I will make the context part kind of like uppercase and make it actually I will use Lotto for that one so that it's bolder. Okay, and then for the embrace, instead of having it in the bracket, I will just use all lowercase, and then this is still Lotto Light without bold, and I'm going to use a different color, a bit kind of a gray, so that it shows that it's kind of like it kind of like, it's not the same with context, but you should embrace it. So kind of like a bit gray there. And I will even play around with kind of like the distance between the character. Make it loose. Okay, it looks good. Now let's position it just underneath in the center of your icon. And then we're going to do the same for this. Just copy that one so you have the same formatting. Can delete that one. Okay, you have the same position, and now just okay, then type avoid. Right, so looking much better there, except for these two text boxes. I'm going to make this one also the same with this one, so changing it to a lot of light, and then 16 in size. I think I will just delete this logo, not using it anymore. So you do want to have kind of like roughly the same size of text boxes, so you always go to shape format and check out. Yeah, oh well, you can make it 10 centimeters, I guess. The same with this one. I don't think you should care a lot about the height, because as you can see, it's different kind of this one will definitely be higher in height because it has more content, so you should not pay attention to it. But because we are all aligning kind of the elements according to the width, so you should just pay attention to the width. So now you also want to make sure it's in the center. Okay, like that. Good. The same with this one. Now that's in the center as well. So now you want to make sure that the distances are also looking good between the elements. For example, this one, I don't like it too much because this has more space than this one. So I'm going to move these icons a bit upwards. Sometimes you just have to go with gut feelings. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Alright, so this is kind of like one way you can do it. Now you can also spice it up a bit more, like what I said in my blog post. You can always also play around with the coloring of your font and also resizing it so that you actually can draw the attention of your audience to certain keywords. So that's what I'm going to do. Like for example, context is the important one, so I will just color it with the Netflix red as well. Provide the insight to enable sound decisions. I think sound here is actually, or even enable is actually a good keyword here. And then I will also perhaps underline it. That looks good. Here I can always, so if it's one word you don't want to recolor the whole thing, then it becomes kind of well, not beautiful anymore. So you do not want to overuse recoloring. So for example, this one I'm just going to highlight transparency, make it bold. This one I think top down is definitely at the opposite of transparency to a certain extent. Alright, well I just think that it's kind of like important point that you want to avoid, you know, the top-down decision making. Then planning and process valued more than result. This is definitely also kind of like a keyword, valued more here. Okay. I think I can make the whole thing bigger as well. Oh, okay, looking good. I will also make this bigger. I think I can further beautify this slide by using font pairings. So I like this I like this font pairing. So, and you before you can use it, you need to make sure that you have already installed the font in your computer. So here's the link. You can just download and install it. So I'm going to use this leaks button for the headings, and then this one for the subheading will be good. And then I think I will stick to Lotto for the content itself. Okay, like for this one, I will use that leaks button. Oh, look at that, looking good already. And then for this one, I will use, what do they call it? Okay, Basker fill. Now I want to make sure it's in the center. I think I'll just make this smaller. Okay. Yeah, I think it looks good like that. I will also actually change this one to leaks button, because the leaks button font has a very bold kind of texture or line. It looks pretty good to actually highlight or emphasize certain keywords. Okay. Alright. So you can always stop at that step, but to be honest, for me this is still a bit plain. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go back to step 4 and play around with let's see, the container, because you always have this option as well to actually put a container around the whole content and not just the icon. I will choose, so when you use a container, it's usually better when you use a rectangle with rounded corners. Don't this one is too boxy in my opinion, so let's just do that. The default color is awful, so I think for this one, no fill. I actually just want the outline of it, and then the outline I'm going to use a bit of a dash, and then a bit thicker. Then I want to use gray, light gray. Alright, light gray is good. And okay, the provided rounded rectangle is actually not so good design wise. You always want a kind of like just a bit of the rounded corner. So you want to drag this to the left. Alright, so now it's much more modern. And now let me just resize this so that it fits the content nicely. You want a room to breathe, but you do not want too much room to breathe. So that's why go with your gut feeling. Make sure that the left and the right is kind of like has the same distance, and the same with the top and down of it. So now you have a nice card, and let me just group the entire thing. Oops. So with PowerPoint, when you want to select kind of like few elements, you want to just drag kind of like the elements you want to group together. In Photoshop, well, okay, let's just stop there. And I want to do the same for the control, but then you want the same size of the container. So I'm just going to copy and paste it from the one that I've already created before, and just put it here in the center. All right. So I have that. group this together. Alright, now my problem is this doesn't have enough space between the elements, and I think I should make this, because then basically on this side of the slide it's very overcrowded, but you have kind of like empty spaces here. So in that case you want to actually make the elements here actually wider, so you can actually save some space vertically, like for example this one, and then make this one also kind of like wider. Again, to fit the content nicely. Alright. Let me just ungroup the whole thing so it makes it easier for me to reposition each element. Okay, so that's in the center already. Alright, and then this one is a bit smaller, and then I will delete this one, then use this one. So you always want kind of like each container to be neatly aligned in the center, so you just use like the space kind of like from the edge and the far left of your slide, like the margin. Basically you want to have kind of like roughly the same margin. So let me ungroup this and make this bigger by a bit, right? I will just use this. Okay. And this one. Alright. Now let's position the entire thing a bit below or down. Okay, so the margin here is roughly the same with the margin here, so I think you're good. You can also always put this a bit, move it a bit up, so you have more space between kind of like the headings and the content of your slide. Alright, I think we're done. I think it looks pretty good, so I'm just going to show you what we had before and what we have now after adding icons and adding containers and playing around with the coloring, as well as the font of your presentation slide. So, alright, this is what we have before. Basically, I took it from Netflix. I forgot what's the presentation called, but the presentation about their work culture. So all text and then bullet points and bullet points. And now what we have after adding an icon and playing around with the colors as well as the font, we have this. Yeah.